So some are saying the Vikings should sign Kyler Murray in free agency. However, I'd rather see them bring back a familiar face that might upset some fans, but here's why. Kyler is still under contract with the Cardinals, but multiple insiders have been on record saying the team is likely to move on from him this offseason. A trade would be their preferred method, and yeah, I'm sure it would be, because that way they'd free up around $35 million in cap space, and they'd leave around $18 million in dead money if they did that. The problem is, I don't know what team is going to want to take on that contract, especially with Kyler playing just 5 games before suffering what ended up being a season-ending foot injury in 2025. So a release is much more likely, in my opinion, because that way, if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut, they can spread his $54.7 million cap hit over the next 2 seasons. So if that happens, several people, including Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, have listed the Vikings as an ideal landing spot. Breer thinks Kyler will find a place that views him as a reclamation project, mentioning both the Vikings and the Jets. So I've seen some Vikings fans very much on board with this, saying, hey, Kyler's still 28 years old and is just a couple years removed from having over 4,400 total yards and 26 total touchdowns in 2024. However, I want to push back on that a little bit because I mentioned the foot injury. I think that would give me some pause just to bring in a guy who's coming off a season-ending injury, and that's who you would have then compete with or back up JJ McCarthy, who has enough injury concerns of his own to worry about. Plus, even if he were to stay healthy, I'm not convinced that his style of play is even suited for KOC's offense. If you remove last season, since he hardly played, and just look at 2022 to 2024, those 3 years, okay? Kyler has thrown 68 passes of 25 or more air yards. Of those 68 passes, he's completed just 12 of them. That's a 17.6 completion rate, which would rank dead last among qualified QBs over that span. Meanwhile, the Vikings offense is predicated on pushing the ball down the field, a lot of long developing routes, and trying to hunt for explosives in the pass game. We saw Sam Darnold excel with that in 2024. JJ McCarthy obviously struggled a bit more with that in 2025. But if the hope is for JJ McCarthy to grow in the offseason and to come in as the presumed starter in 2026, then I feel much more comfortable with someone like Kirk Cousins backing him up. He knows the offense and would in theory be very cheap if the Falcons release him, which they are expected to. I think he would provide a bit of a safer floor than Kyler Murray would in the event that McCarthy struggles again in 2026 or deals with more injury problems. But you guys got to let me know your thoughts on Kyler Murray to the Vikings. Do you think it's a good idea or nah?